Hi guys, Peter here, Unit Coordinator for Science and Technology, EDU 30002. I'm just going to go through Flipped Collaborate for Assignment 2B, which is due on Friday, the 9th of February 2018, week 12, last day of week 12. So the end's in sight, everybody. Assignment B asks you to develop one learning plan and one lesson plan. The word limit overall, not for each, is 2,000 words, and the weighting is 35% of your total score. Now, so it is a folio, which means it's something that you can actually use and keep, and it asks you to develop the two plans which are for technology that can be integrated with science learning experiences. So one plan is a learning plan for children aged 3 to 5 years, preschool children, using the Early Learning Plan template. That will be 1,000 words. You also need to develop one lesson plan for primary school children aged 6 to 8 years of age using the lesson plan template, which is 1,000 words. 6 to 8 years of age is generally foundation or prep, grade 1 and grade 2. You would choose one of them. So the assignment details. You need to download, the first thing you need to do is have a look at the assignment criteria and everything in the assignment details in the student portal. But then you need to download the learning and lesson plan templates from the assignment section, assignment 2B, and the details are in our unit. I'll just show you where they are. So you go into assignments, assignment 2B. So you've got all your information there that you need and the criteria. I'm not going to go through the criteria now. We'll do that in the live collaborate. So to find the lesson plan templates, you click on assignment details and it goes through everything here. And then in order to prepare your learning and lesson plans, you must use these two documents. So you click on one, it will download, hopefully. If not, I've downloaded one. You open it up and there you have your template. Now you don't change these, you just add to them. So don't take any of the text away. We like you to keep that there, and it is 3 pages overall, which will probably be more by the time you type everything into it. So you need to use these, and the words in this, the text in it, is not included in your overall word count. You deduct that. Now, there is also a demonstration, and so for a guided tour on the use of each of these templates, you go to the online demonstrations. I'll show you that in a second, but you can also print them. Actually, I think I'll print the learning, I'll get the learning planner. So it looks like this, and it's an example of the type of language you would use. Now this does happen to be a science one, but remember you're doing science and technology, so that it's more of a focus on technology with a science concept. So you can see the type of language they've used. It's quite direct and brief. You can use dot points too, which I think are really good in a lesson plan for some of the areas. So I'll just click out of that. So they're examples. To get to the interactive section, you have to go into the student portal, into study resources, scroll down, and then to the academic writing area, and there's lesson plans and observations. So you open that up, and this is quite a good resource too. So there's the Primary Education Lesson Plan Guide, Early Childhood Learning Plan Guide, the templates, and these recording sheets which you would use on your prac. So these are the ones you would click on. So here's, I think I clicked on the lesson plan. So it looks like the ones that I showed you before. It's got content descriptors in there. That's all you need to do. Choose the content descriptors and pop them in, and then you'll do all your plan in the body of the template. The beauty of these is if you think, oh, I want a bit more information on what is a rationale, if you click on that box.
In the lesson rationale section, this is where you will write what has influenced your lesson choice. For example, student interest, global or local event. The lesson rationale could vary significantly. It could be as simple as a follow-on lesson from a previous starting point to something more elaborate. This might be a section where you'll be asked to defend your choices with academic literature within unit assignments.
Okay, so there's a brief overview of what each section means. It's really good if you forget what you're doing or you become a little bit confused. Have a little look at that. All right, so that's pretty straightforward. So the assignment details. The plans need to focus on integrating science or a science concept, science processing skills, and exploring digital or design technology. So in the body of the lesson, not the body, the structure of the learning plan and lesson plan templates, there's a section that says rationale. That's why you chose the topic. What prompted you to choose that particular experience, for example, a current event, child interest, and you need to underpin your rationale with some academic reading. So, how children learn, why have you chosen this, and it's also got to be relevant for the age group. So I'll go into that in more detail in a minute. And then you've got your objectives. So what skills do you intend for the children to learn and develop through your plan? So you need to make sure your objectives, and this is kind of throughout the whole of the plans, use SMART goals. So you don't have to write SMART through your plan. You can do that if you want to, but it might become a little bit clumsy as some of these areas will overlap. But the SMART goals are specific. So your plan has to be targeted. What's the targeted area? You need to state clearly exactly what you want to accomplish. You can include who, what, how in that. They need to be measurable. So it's an indicator of the process or the progress, and it's a measurement that gives feedback. So it will include some kind of assessment in your plan, both plans. Your learning and lesson plans need to be achievable. So the goals for students must be something they can achieve. It means that the goal will challenge the student so that it's worthwhile to work on, but it's also realistic for that age group and time-wise, and it's something the children can actually achieve. It needs to be relevant to the curriculum that you're looking at, so the science and the technology areas you've chosen, and to that age group. It needs to be achievable, realistic, challenging, yet attainable within a given time frame. Your lesson plans have to be time-bound. So when will the goal be achieved? And the time frame must be realistic and achievable too. So you focus on the SMART principles when developing your lessons. And your lessons, when we think about time-bound, they need to be standalone lessons, not a series of lessons and not a unit of work. And, I know some of you have done other subjects where you would have planned things like that. These need to be a lesson that's deliverable in a time frame. So, it might be in the morning, between 9 and 10 or 9 and 11. It might be a longer activity depending on what it is, but it wouldn't be a series of lessons. So it's not an ongoing thing, but it might be part of an ongoing thing. It might be a lesson in a unit of work, but it has to be a standalone lesson. And also, I want you to remember that a lesson plan is like a recipe. You might have planned it and you're sick, and somebody else has to implement this lesson. So it needs to be written in such a way it's extremely clear, it's easy to follow, the materials, you know what you need. So somebody else should be able to pick up your lesson plan and teach it. And here are the SMART goals again: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. It's very important that you clearly include teaching strategies you would use that are effective and contextually relevant across the learning stages and curriculum areas. So you need to think about, particularly in your rationale, you'll include academic references and unit readings to support why you've done that. Why are these relevant? Why is this a good way for children to learn? And this is where you'll bring in, if you're using a 5Es pedagogical strategy, or inquiry, or discussing effective questioning and things like that, or teaching from the point of interest of the students, and that's where you would discuss all those things. You need to support it with relevant academic literature, not just websites. Websites are not necessarily academic literature. Generally, they're not. And use unit readings as your first stop. Go onto Google Scholar or the Swinburne Library, or some of your other courses where you've, other units where you've had some really good literature that's discussed how children learn and what's effective. And the Early Years Learning Framework for 3 to 5 years of age, and the Australian curriculum for your lesson plans for 6 to 8 years of age. You need to make sure you include some references to that, and your content descriptors and your reasons behind things will be from there too. So APA referencing has to be adhered to consistently, and it's one reference list at the end of both lesson plans. You don't need to do a reference list for each, just combine them at the end. So what's the difference between digital and design technologies? Now, our weekly modules are going into these areas now, but they are quite different, even though they come under the umbrella of technology. So you need to consider this. The plans need to focus on a science concept. It might be living and non-living things. That might be your science concept, and on learning about design and technology or digital technologies. So they will complement the science concept. Design and technology is where you use technology in useful ways to improve life and solve problems. A fork is design technology. A bridge is design technology. An umbrella is design technology. Making a worm farm, or designing a healthy lunchbox. They're all design technology ideas. Digital technology, I think you all know what that is. But it's possibly more than what you think when we're talking about teaching. So you're using digital resources to effectively find, analyse, create, communicate and use information in a digital context. And this starts off in a simple form for very young children, and it becomes much more complex for older children in regards to coding and things like that. But it's more than just having a whiteboard in the classroom or showing a video. That's not digital technology. You're using digital technology, but you're not really teaching children how to use digital technology, and that's the aim if you're doing that. And here is the learning plan template. So it looks a bit like this, and you need to keep all the text there. I've put some extra text like this covered in rationale discussion. You need to fill this in. So you'll type into the template, and some areas will just be a couple of words like this, the topic. So your topic might be digital technologies and science. The date and the age group is 4-year-olds. And the title of your experience, you can be either creative or photographing nature. Excuse me. This box, you have to put your links, in this case, to the Early Years Learning Framework. So, you might have chosen, let me see, I haven't got one here. outcome 4, children are confident and involved learners, or outcome 5, children are effective communicators. That's where you put that information in. So your next box over is the content or concepts being explored. So that's where you type in what you're doing, not all what you're doing, but what you're exploring. So you're definitely, one of the contents will be technology of some kind, either digital or design, and something to do with science. So you might be exploring digital technology, taking photos. So you might be looking at using an iPad to take photos, on, off, holding the iPad steady, putting it in position, looking at the different icons on there, the camera icons. Don't go into too much detail, but it's using an iPad to take photos. Your science might be biology, earth and sciences, like looking at science processing skills and identifying natural and man-made objects. So your rationale. This is where you're going to get a lot of we're going to see that you have based your lesson on academic research and it's valid and it's relevant. So why did you choose this particular experience? It might be a community event, a child initiated something by bringing something into school, it might be identified as an area missing from the curriculum that needs to be covered. So, for instance, the children have, been expressing interest in going outside on nature walks and discovering all the, different living things out there and using their senses to explore. You might, discuss something about use a reference to discuss the use of senses and processing skills there. They might be looking at autumn leaves or something like that. And some children have been bringing them in, so they want to discover more. So you might be drawing on the child's interests and going on a science walk to provide them with opportunities to explore their natural environment, make discoveries for themselves. You can include, some references to elaborate on that. And also, so then you sort of thought about science and the types of learning there and processing skills and science concepts. And then you think about the technology within the rationale, which is very, very important. We need you to identify technology. So you might be looking at, the use of iPads is an opportunity to improve children's technological understanding and skills. You might want to foster independence in using these technologies, and you might want to provide opportunities for them to record their own learning to be used to further learning, to make scientific observations. So here we go into the next box. So the children's background and knowledge. Now, children always come with some understandings. So what's your starting point? What do the children already know? What have they done before? And how does this experience connect to or build on their existing knowledge interests? Now, they might have been learning about the different types of leaves or trees or something like that. And, they can identify colours, and they have used the iPads for games, but they haven't actually taken photographs with them and recorded their experiences. So you're going to build on that in your lesson. That's what you're going to teach them how to do. So the learning objectives. What will the children be learning? Now, this has to be really clear. You don't make it too wordy. You can dot point them, number them, but you'll have, 3 or 4 learning objectives. So learning objectives, what will they be doing with the technology? They'll be able to position and hold the iPad steady to take one photo of either a leaf, flower, insect found in the garden in their allocated groups, or another one could be children will be able to save and print their photos of the images taken, and they might, another one could be that children will compare, group, classify the printed garden images into categories based on their characteristics and features. So you've got your kind of science and technology in there. Teacher focus intentionality. Now, when we're teaching, we're always developing. It doesn't matter if you've taught 2 years or 20 years, you can always improve. And so this section is you're looking at how you're teaching, what areas will you concentrate on. You might be concentrating on effective prompting questions. You might be focusing on classroom management, or organising the children into groups. You might be focusing on catering for differences. So it's depending on what you want to write. This is all hypothetical. These are not lessons you've done. So these are like ideal lessons, perfect lessons that you could teach, and thinking about how you could do this best practice teaching. And hopefully you'll get to implement them. So this is why it's a folio. Teacher. I see lots of student teachers coming in and they are not organised. They might have come up with a great lesson to do and they have not. You've got a plan, and you've also got to make sure it works. So you think about the actual physical environment. Where are the children going to be doing it? Inside, outside? So if you are going outside, you would need to make sure it's a safe area and that it's accessible for all of the children in your class. You need to think about what resources, especially if you're using digital technology. Is it charged? Does it work? Is there enough for everybody? You also need to include any videos that you might be showing the children in to engage them in the introduction. You need, or picture storybooks or games, equipment for a game, a warm-up game. You need to include anything like, if they are doing, say, a design technology activity, that you've got the materials organised and you need a little list of all the materials. You can include some images to support this, how you're going to set up the classroom or the types of materials the children will be using. You can do that as an appendix at the end of the assignment, which is always quite nice for us to see that you've actually put a good deal of thought into planning how you're going to implement the lesson, and that you've really thought about everything that you need, down to pencils and paper, if you need that. Assessment strategies. So this is the measurable part. How will you identify what the child or children have learnt, and how will you record this? Now, this is easier said than done. With young children, usually, in an early learning centre, there might be a support person there. In a classroom, there generally isn't. So how are you going to assess these children realistically and be accountable for their learning? It could be simple as you documenting it with some photographs. You might have an anecdotal little records that you're keeping, then you're writing some notes with some questions you've already thought about. You might have a checklist, of what the children are doing and how they're responding to the activity. And you might even do that afterwards in your conclusion, asking them questions and recording strategies. You might do a little pre-assessment, what the children already know. You might do a graph where they predict things and record it on an interactive whiteboard. There's lots of different things you can do there. Okay, so the template's not included in your word count. The lesson plan template, you'll deduct 319 words from your overall text, and the learning plan has 344 words. Don't delete the text. We need it there. It's really hard to keep track of where we're up to if you take the text out of the template. All right, so the body of your lesson. You've thought about what you're doing, why you're doing it, and this is how you're going to do it. So it needs to be timed. It's measurable. It could be a full day lesson, especially with young children, because it might be an activity that goes all day. In a school, it would tend not to be that. It might be part of a unit, but we're pretty time-bound in primary schools that we have to fit a lot of stuff in. So it will be full day, morning, specific time. And here you'll break it down into times. So stage 1, your introduction, how will you introduce the experience, concepts, and engage and interest the children? So this might be 15 minutes. So you'll write how long it will be going. You'll have a whole group, 15 minutes. So the pre-service teacher actions. What will you do during this time? What prompting questions might you need to prepare? How might you assess and record learning? How will you cater for individual differences? So every step of the way, it's like a recipe. What will you be doing all the time? So you might start off with a picture storybook, or you might sing a song to gather everyone together. So you're using teaching strategies to engage the children all the time. You might introduce and show the children to a little video about, going on a nature walk. You would include a reference if you use any picture storybooks or videos of any kind. And you do need to source them and work it out. Don't just say, we'll read a story about this. We need to know what story you're going to be reading or what video you will be watching. And also, if you're including a video, don't make it too long. You don't want children sitting on the mat in an introduction for a long time. And remember, they've had their prior experiences. They might have been learning about something already. You include your prompting questions here, which are very important. And you sequence what you're actually doing. So teacher will explain the sequence of the planned activity. One group will be exploring outside, whilst the other group will be taking photos. They'll both be exploring outside, so you'll split into 2 groups. One group will be exploring, one group will be taking photos. Could be something like that of leaves, insects, plants, trees, flowers. You'll demonstrate, so you're telling them what's going to happen. Then maybe the next dot point will be you're demonstrating using the interactive whiteboard how the iPad works, how to turn it on, identify, locate the camera, and taking a photo. You can discuss, what their experiences have been in that, and you might be just talking to them about any potential hazards outside and how to stay safe. And then the teacher will split the children into 2 groups. Child action. So this is what the children are doing. So they will be listening, asking questions, watching the video, sharing their understandings and observations of experiences with nature and with the use of iPads. So stage 2, say you were doing that, like on a nature walk, going out and taking photos. Children put their hats on, go outside. The teacher guides their explorations in the outdoor area, drawing attention to the plants, trees, prompting questions. I wonder what's over there, or do you think this is living or non-living? Why? Why not? Children will take turns to use the iPad. The teacher will ask prompting questions. What do we need to do first? What do you press? Teacher scaffolds children with verbal prompts, physical guidance. Children will take photos, focusing, locating the camera icon, tapping it to capture an image. So you can bring them all together and sit under a tree and stop and discuss things. So you just write step by step what you're doing, not too wordy. That was a little bit wordy for me, sorry. So, and then you fill in what the kids will be doing. So every good lesson should have a little conclusion. So teacher will bring the children into, so the body of the lesson might be half an hour. Conclusion might be 15 minutes, go back inside. Might be after lunch, you've printed out images. So the pre-service teachers' actions might be printing images, or sharing the images on an interactive whiteboard, putting them into categories, living, non-living, what worked well when you were taking the photos, what was difficult. So you're revisiting the whole thing. And you might conclude by using another story or playing a game of Snap with the images or memory or something like that. I don't know. That's just I'm making it up the top of my head. That's why it sounds peculiar. It will be much better. All right, so this part, evaluation and self-reflection on the template. Did your experience meet your learning objectives? Why not? What aspects of the experience worked most effectively? What aspects could be improved and how could they improve? For instance, flow, teaching resources, teaching strategies, environment, assessment of learning. I'll also, in the body of the lesson, write down when you're assessing and how you're assessing it throughout that too. So all the teacher actions need to be included. But here, we do want you to fill this bit out. It is hypothetical. I know it seems strange because you haven't actually done the lesson, but it's good in practice to include reflective questioning of your teaching practice. For instance, did the timing of the lesson plan work well? Were the students engaged in the activity? Did you cater for individual differences? Were the materials you used effective? So what could you do to improve? So think about, okay, I've done the lesson. How could I improve it next time? Down here, the mentor-teacher comments, you do not have to fill in this section. Pre-server teacher comments, you don't have to fill in that section either. So here's like the lesson plan template. So say you've had a go of incorporating science and digital technologies in your learning plan, you might want to have a go at design and technologies, which I find very, very easy to incorporate into science and science concepts. So they're very complementary areas for both. And it's okay, you can do 2 design technology lessons or 2 digital or 1 of each. It's up to you, but I think it's good for you to have a go at 1 of each if possible. So again, lesson title, date, year level. Remember, the lesson plan is from foundation to grade 2. So say you've chosen foundation, your topic might be testing materials to see if they're waterproof. The duration of the lesson might be 1 hour. Your learning areas would be science. Okay, now if you look at the science curriculum, it's divided into strands and sub-strands. So you've got science inquiry skills and science as human endeavour. You need to choose the most relevant to your lesson. You also need to choose something, most importantly, from design or digital technologies. I'll show you, have a little look at the Australian curriculum here, and then you'll choose a content descriptor. So if you go into Google the Australian curriculum, you go up to this tab at the top, the F to 10 curriculum. So you'll look at science because you will need something from there, but you'll also look at technologies, and that's divided into 2 areas: design and technologies and digital technologies. I'm going to click on design technologies, and we're looking at only foundation to year 2. I'll click on that, submit. And then I can click on, there's an overview, so understanding how it works and the way it's split up. So, but I can just click onto the content descriptors here. Have a good look around. I'm just doing this really quickly. So you've got design and technologies, knowledge and understanding, so that's a sub-strand. Design and technologies, processes and production skills. And you'll need to choose content descriptors from here and from science. Don't choose too many. Realistically, when you're teaching, if you can't really assess that content descriptor, you might be covering it a little bit, but you don't really need to pop it in. If it's something you're really, really looking for, they're the content descriptors you want. So I'm thinking this one. Explore the characteristics and properties of materials and components used to produce design solutions. That's a good one. Then you can click on the elaborations. And that gives you a better idea of an activity you might do. These are examples only. Exploring design solutions to meet individual, family and community needs with a focus on materials. For example, fabric used for sports clothing, soft fall, like on the playground, or play spaces. There's lots of different ones. I'm thinking this is a good one too, experimenting with techniques to combine or alter materials to satisfy a function. I think exploring design solutions is a good one. I'll click on that. Actually, I'll go back. Sorry. Now, I didn't mean to do that, sorry. So the content descriptors. So really you just need to cut and paste the content descriptor in there. This will actually take you to Scootle if you're interested in that, and there'll be some ideas there. Now you can't take an activity directly from Scootle. You can use these things as inspiration, but it's important that you come up with your own activities. We do it all the time as teachers. We have to be very creative. But here's some elaborations. So exploring how push and pull are used in the design of toys. That's a great one. Like, it's really good. You've got your science, push and pull, and you've got the design. Experimenting with components such as wheels, balls, slides, springs. Selecting materials to demonstrate how material properties are appropriate for particular design solution. They're really good. They're cool. You'll be inspired once you have a look at the elaborations. Have a little click on Scootle, and there's even activities in there. So I'll click out of that. That's where you'll find all that information. Now I've lost my slides. Ooh, that's good. So you'll just cut and paste the relevant content descriptors from science and technology in here. The lesson rationale, same as before, you write that with supporting evidence. For instance, maybe the kids was pouring with rain and some came in wet and some didn't, and it led to a discussion about why some were wet and some weren't. Some had umbrellas, some had waterproof jackets on, some just put their bags on top of their heads. And you'll think about, through the questions this surfaced, you thought about, what does waterproofing mean? What makes something waterproof? What materials are waterproof? And then you might make some links to some of our learning materials, or 5Es, why that's an effective method to teach science, and your lesson's going to employ this approach with a focus on constructivist learning. So, you're trying to position the children as investigators and help them develop their science inquiry and processing skills while learning to use technological skills and making plans and testing materials and making predictions. So students' background knowledge, again, they will come with something. You might have been they might have had some experience looking at different materials, but have only described their traits, in terms of texture, weight and appearance, and haven't actually been thinking about waterproofing. So your lesson's going to build on the background knowledge of materials and form learning around how each type of material can be used effectively for a purpose or not. Your teacher focus again, so testing, ensuring you've got all your equipment might be your teacher focus, ensuring your time management skills are in place. It's up to you what that will be. So your learning objectives, and remember they do need to be SMART goals throughout the whole thing. So define and understand waterproof concepts, that children can define what waterproof is, that they might work collaboratively collaboratively to achieve their outcome. The children will make predictions about materials. Children will use a variety of materials to design an umbrella or a waterproof item that will help people. Okay, so the learning environment resources, same as before. Assessment strategies. How will you identify it? You do have to include all that. So you might you might even incorporate digital technologies within that. They might record, or you might record some of the children explaining things using an app. Explain everything. You might have a checklist that you will use. You might take photographs of their final product. This might be good. You might, at the beginning of the lesson, you might have had something like a survey of the kids. You have all the different materials up, and the children will predict, what's waterproof, what isn't, and how many of the children did that. So again, you have your timed lesson, has to be split up into times, and the pre-service teacher actions in order, has to be sequential. Keep it short, keep it brief, dot points, and you really need to think about everything you're doing and what will the children be doing in the other box. And again, yes, you do have to evaluate this lesson. You don't have to do mentor-teacher comments or pre-service teacher comments. All right. Frequently asked questions. Do you have to integrate both science and technology in the learning experience? Yes, check the rubric. It does request both. Do check the curriculum documents carefully to make sure your lesson plans are pedagogically valid. They do need to be based on the Australian curriculum and the EYLF. I would even have a little look at the Australian curriculum there to think about, where are those kids going? And so the type of things you might be engaging them in. Look carefully at the documents in terms of digital and design technology, differentiating them, and all the different options you can incorporate. The digital technology has some really interesting things. Look at the elaborations. Simply including the use of an interactive whiteboard, IWB, or a video will not meet the criteria. Students watching a video, or you as a teacher using an interactive whiteboard, or them just playing a game on an iPad, is not teaching design or digital technology. You have to be teaching them how to use it if it's digital technology, something or a concept that they need to learn about. So they need to be clearly developing valid technological concepts in the lesson. Make sure you include links to content descriptors for both science and technology in your lesson plan, and clearly note the content or concepts being explored in the section for science and technology that in your learning plan. So using resources, there are fantastic ideas out there. I know I'm always looking for ideas from somewhere else, but put an original spin on them. Don't directly use resources from the internet or copy lesson plans from other sources. We will know. It's quite obvious. So make sure you acknowledge any sources you do use, because you will get ideas from elsewhere, but put an original spin on them. Scootle is really good. Have a look at that. ABC Splash has lots of videos, but it actually has other ideas too. If you're using an introductory video or something, that could be a good area for you to look at. Cool Australia has lots of great activities there. For digital technology specifically, it's probably a little more specific. CS Unplugged is a very good website. It's a New Zealand website. It's possibly for older kids, but you might get a little idea there. It's a bit of navigating to do on that website to find the activities, but it's pretty good. And DigiPub is a Victorian Education Department site that has fantastic activities linked to, well, the Victorian curriculum, which is basically virtually the same as the Australian curriculum. So, but don't take them straight from there, and try to vary it between digital and design technologies between the two activities. And I said one reference list at the end. Don't keep yours, when you're writing this, keep your sentences very short. Eliminate any unnecessary words like a recipe. Direct, clear language is really, really essential. Dot points are fantastic for this, not for the rationale, but for the body of your lesson and for some of the, the materials and things like that. That's really good. But yeah, the rationale I wouldn't use dot points for. So I hope this has been a little bit helpful and I haven't confused you. Our live Collaborate, if you could come armed with questions to that, that would be great. It's on Wednesday, the 17th of January at 8 p.m. I'm not going to go through the assessment criteria there. We will go through it on the night. And but you definitely need to have a look at that. We marked the criteria. Once you've come up with a lesson idea, make yourself, an outline. Go and look at the criteria and go look at what's missing. What can I do better? And definitely include academic references in there. And don't pinch ideas from completely from somewhere else, because that's not what this is about. Hopefully you're going to have 2 fantastic lessons that you'll be able to use in your pracs. And let me tell you, teachers will love you when you're their student teacher and you do a fantastic digital or design technology lesson linked with science. The kids will love you because it is the most fun thing they can do. So get inspired. Do something you would like to teach. You would really, really like to teach. Not that you think we want to see. Do something that would make you happy to teach. And that's the best advice I can give you. And if you like teaching it, the kids will like doing it and you'll feel more engaged. Don't do something you don't understand. It won't be good. Do something that makes sense to you. Be creative. All right, lots of lovely things you can do there. All right, thanks everybody. See you soon.